Meow, meow. Everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat. Here's a video that's mostly benefiting some of you. I never really get too many views on these other miners, but I'm going to go through some of them anyway, just to kind of complete my thoughts here. BTBT monthly charts. Gonna pull up some of the indicators over here. Bullish cross over here in February 2024 of the Tenkan Kijun. Price stuck underneath the Kijun, trying to break back above. Whales look like they're still in if things just been consolidating. There's really no trend here for the short term, but over the last year and a half, it was able to form more higher highs than higher lows, but things just kind of stuck here in this range for about a whole year now, building up a lot of energy. And if you look at the weekly here, things are still kind of stuck underneath the Ichimoku cloud. So this is not as good as the other 6 miners that I was talking to you about, the other ones that I own currently. The trend is lagging behind, but whales are coming in here on the weekly, which could potentially be, positive. But you do need to break above these Ichimoku cloud here on the weekly before you're really able to do some, pretty decent things moving forward. And things can change quickly, On the 20-month moving average is pointing up, price is above 20-month moving average. This is always a good sign. Bull in Japan for the monthly seems to be squeezing, so hey, maybe a big move would be coming up here soon. But the volume has just kind of been declining. Like, this is just a sideways move. It's not really picking a direction. Overall, if I have to guess, based on the 20-month moving average, I think it's probably going to end up pushing up. Based on the fact that it's also a Bitcoin miner, I think it's also going to end up pushing up. And if you also look at the weekly chart here, you're seeing things get really, really squeezy over here too, which means that a big move is probably going to end up pushing up a lot higher soon if Bitcoin goes up higher. It's reclaimed the bull market support band here, so in the lower time frame on a weekly, actually, on these moving averages, it looks good, but on the Ichimoku cloud, unfortunately, it's just kind of stuck underneath the Ichimoku cloud still, which is okay. It looks like it's trying to wick above of it, but it really needs to break inside the Ichimoku to really confirm a more bullish momentum here for BTBT. But it doesn't look bad. Again, the whales coming in, that's a good sign. So I'm gonna pull up the GAN here, kind of tell you what I'm seeing here. A little bit of a higher time frame here. And right now, again, it's still stuck, just like it's stuck underneath the weekly Ichimoku cloud. It's still stuck inside this arc over here. Once it's able to break about the arc, you might want to re-challenge $4 and $5 up here at the GAN line here, as well as the Fibonacci level at 0.136. And then you're talking about a chance to hit some of the arcs and higher Fibonacci levels. There's still going to be a lot more resistance above. I won't get ahead of myself. Over here, let's just kind of see whether or not we're able to break outside of this range here first. And, the top of range, again, is going to be around like $5. So we'll see if we can break above that. That's Bitdigital. The other one to look at is Bitdeer. I was, basically paying a little bit more attention to this one last week, and there are a couple things. One is, if you just look at Bull Japan, it doesn't look very good on the monthly. It's still stuck underneath a declining 20-month moving average, so I probably won't buy. But if you look at the weekly chart, it's looking much more decent, right? If you look at the weekly chart, you see that the market support band has been reclaimed. So far, it looks like it's very, very squeezy, so a big move is coming up. It could be end up moving up, right? Whales just came in. A lot of retail percentages have drastically reduced, and you have a lot more increase in whale here. Although I like to see the whale really get to about like more than 50% for confirmation that the whales are really truly in. This big candle over here, break above the bull market support band, is on high volume on the last week. So all these are relatively bullish development here for Bitdeer. But, it's not out of the woods yet based on the monthly, right? Like, this still looks like a pretty nasty potential rejection here in the 20-month moving average. Although whales are also kind of showing up here on the monthly here too. So it's potentially a little bit promising. Ichimoku on the monthly, it's just underneath the Ichimoku cloud indicators of the Tenkan Kijun. So you're going to see a lot more resistance over here, just like you would see resistance with the monthly bull in Japan. It's a very confluent zone of resistance right around $8 to $9. So not surprised if it ends up hitting that zone and end up getting rejected. But it's got to start somewhere. You can't just go up in a straight line. So this is still probably going to lag behind here a little bit. On the weekly, Ichimoku cloud is trying to reclaim the cloud from the bottom. Got a little very similar look to BTBT, is kind of pushing for the bottom and see whether or not they can break through on high volume with well presence. We'll see how far this gets us. But again, good things usually happen with small beginnings. So we'll see how it goes in terms of Bitdeer. RIOT. I'm going to go through a little bit more of a higher time frame here with RIOT. It's technically it's not looking that promising so far. I do think that Bitcoin does well, RIOT's also going to do well, and most likely it's just kind of consolidating here for about a year. It's not really doing too much. I do think on the weekly, I do think this is like an absolute bottom over here with this very, very nice hammer bottom candle over here, although you never know, but this is a very, very nice bottom. So I do like that. I don't think that there's absolutely too much downside to RIOT, but it also is underneath the Tenkan and Kijun lines over here. You did have a bearish cross here back in April, so things are just going sideways and very indecisive. And you're going to end up having these resistance above at like $12 and $13 that it needs to break through, because it's gotten underneath of it. And if you also look at the Bollinger Band, it's also underneath the 20-month moving average, which is around like $10.5 or so. So things are still not looking that great for RIOT on the monthly either. The whales are not really showing up for RIOT. RIOT turns out to be a whale for Bitfarms, but the whales are not really showing up for RIOT. It's unfortunate, but we'll see. Sometimes things can change rather quickly. Like it kind of went down all the way down here during the entire bear market. And next thing you know, it just takes a little bit of whale, a little bit of volume for you to push price up from like $3 all the way to about 20, right? So we'll see whether or not something similar could be happening for RIOT. But so far, technically, it's just been lagging behind. On the Ichimoku, if you look at the weekly again underneath everything, it's not even really challenging the bottom of the cloud, unlike BTBT and Bitdeer. So it's not looking too great. It did have a little bit of a wick down here with pretty decent buying volume, so there's still demand for the stock, but the whales are just not in yet. So I'm probably not going to enter RIOT. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about my thoughts on on RIOT and Bitfarms. I went through some of my thoughts on RIOT and Bitfarms when RIOT's trying to take over by buying like 12% of the shares, pumping Bitfarms price up, and I'm just not sure whether or not that's like a good strategy, especially for potentially for this early mid cycle for miners. It may not. It's creating uncertainty for RIOT, and it's not really pushing the price of RIOT up. It's not. I just don't know whether or not it's a good strategy. Now, granted, if Bitfarm does well, RIOT's probably also going to do very well if they hold like 12% of the Bitfarm shares, but I just don't know whether or not that's where the focus should be. But hey, that's a fundamental part of it. You like to argue all that you want. I'm not going to comment on that anymore. I just think that it's silly if anybody tries to use that as an argument for RIOT and against Bitfarm or vice versa. But that's just my thoughts. Doesn't matter. HUD 8 on the monthly, lagging way behind the other miners. Haven't even had any chance for a bullish cross yet, right? And if you look at the Bollinger Band with the 20-month moving average, is still underneath the 20-month moving average. Granted, it's flattening, which is promising, right? Sometimes it just takes a little bit of volume. Right now, this just been declining on volume over here, just consolidating. Sometimes it just needs a little bit of volume to really hugely pump the stock up. You do have a little bit of whale presence over here on the monthly, although it's weak. Like the volume just been declining pretty drastically. But it does look like it might want to do a little bit of a trend change, but it's still underneath the 20-month moving average. So I cannot really get too bullish on HUD. And if you also look at the weekly too, it's starting to do some pretty decent things here on the smaller time frame, getting very squeezy over here and it's trying to reclaim the bull market support band. And the whale seems like it's kind of drizzling, kind of coming in a little bit. So could there be some good things happening with RIOT? Could it end up pushing up higher potentially? In the short term frame, possibly. That's entirely possible now. But the problem with the problem with HUT is that it's also still underneath a lot of these resistance, including the Ichimoku cloud, including it did reclaim the Tenkan over here on the weekly, right? On relatively high volume, but it's still underneath the Kijin, underneath the cloud up here. You're going to get a lot more resistance up above. Not to mention, you're going to end up getting a lot of resistance probably from the monthly 20-month moving average over here too, right? So there's a lot of things that still needs to kind of break above before it gets there. The trend is not clearly bullish either. You know, if you look at the weekly moving average, it's not really entirely bullish because 20-week moving average is still under 50 and 100. It just got rejected by a negative sloping 50. So it's still working its stuff out. You know, I wouldn't necessarily jump into HUD, but sometimes all it takes just a little bit of bullish momentum to kind of push things up higher. I do want to go for a couple other ones here too. I'm not gonna get into these. They're all laggards. HIVE has been, unfortunately, has been a very huge laggard. Although I think there's a possibility where in the month of May it might bottom with this doji candle over here, but there's just no well presence at all. If you look at the Ichimoku cloud, there's no bullish cross underneath. It's way underneath the Tenkan and Kijin, just like HUD, it's just lagging behind significantly. Looking at the weekly, is way underneath the cloud. Got rejected here so far. Well, not really rejected, but it's like looks like it might get rejected next week here by the Tenkan, right? And then also on top of that, confluence-wise, is also getting rejected by the bull market support band, and it's just not a great look. There's no squeezy for you to like consider any big movement one way or another. And you do have a little bit of a whale kind of come in a little bit, but there's no confirmation at all. So far, things just looks like it's just got rejected. There's no whale signs. So I'm going to stay away from HIVE here. Greenwich generation, GREE, GREE, no whale presence here on the monthly and on the weekly. Like they're completely gone. There's no sign that this stock is necessarily going to end up getting pumped anytime soon. The Ichimoku cloud again way underneath the Tenkan and Kijin. Although this does look like a Bayesian kind of behavior, we'll see whether or not it ends up reclaiming some of these things and getting bullish cross. But this is a major laggard, so I probably won't, get into it. On the weekly, way underneath the Ichimoku cloud, a laggard that you already knew that. Getting rejected here by the Tenkan, unfortunately, and also not even challenging the bull market support band. There are no whales here on the weekly, so lagging behind significantly. DigiHost, another one that I was asked about previously, and what we're seeing here on the monthly, no whales, although this whole consolidation move sideways has been on declining volume, and sometimes all it takes just a little bit of volume kind of pump things out here, but again, there's no confirmation. On the Ichimoku cloud, you did have a bullish cross here on the month of June, but again, no confirmation by the whales, and price is still underneath the Tenkan and Kijin. So we'll see what happens with this. And you look at the weekly, is trying to challenge the weekly Ichimoku cloud, so at least it's looking better than HIVE and GREE, but it's still underneath everything and still got a lot of resistance underneath. Sometimes just needs a little bit of volume to come in to really push the stock up though. Whales are still not in this, so again, unfortunately still a major laggard. It is still underneath the bull market support band, so again, it's also another major laggard here. So I would not enter DigiHost. If you look at Canon, I've been asked about this. This is a company that supply miners. I would not get into the stock because there are no whale confirmation. Because you look at Ichimoku cloud, it's still way underneath. There's no bullish cross. Price is way underneath of these, Tenkan and Kijin. If you look at the weekly, it looks absolutely horrible. It got rejected at the Tenkan line pointing down. Maybe a little bit of whale presence, but there's no confirmation here at all. And if you go back to the monthly here, through the Bollinger Band, it just looks like a falling knife. There's no confirmation that it's going to, have any kind of trend reversal anytime soon. Although sometimes if you have a retracement of the mean, it can go from like $1 up to like the $1.80 or $2 and end up getting rejected by the 20-month moving average, and that could still be potentially a lot of gain, but that would be more of like a trading move rather than an actual me wanting to buy for a longer term kind of thing. Looking at the weekly, looking at the bull market support band still underneath of that. There's nothing that I'm really paying attention here, unfortunately. Another one that has been brought to my attention here is GRYP. And if you look over at the monthly chart, again, no whales, a lot of trading activity over here, maybe a little bit of bottoming kind of thing, but it's a falling knife. It's in the Bollinger Band, like, it's just expanding all the way down. Like, there's really no reason to think necessarily that it's going to end up stop going down, right? And if you also look at the weekly here, it's just also the same thing. Like, it just keeps on going down, and the lower Bollinger Band is expanded. It's a falling knife. You pull up the Bollinger support band, is way underneath of that. So it's a major laggard. If you're going to get into it, you'll be doing it for a trading move. You wouldn't necessarily be doing it for anything else. There's no whale over here. And going back to the monthly, showing you how bad the Ichimoku cloud is, got rejected here at the Tenkan. Couldn't even get anywhere close to it. And on the weekly here is way underneath the Ichimoku cloud, and also got rejected last week here by the Tenkan. No whales here, right? So not a great look. The one that has really been kind of surprising to the upside is CORZ. CORZ has been absolutely on a tear, and I don't really have that much price history because they went bankrupt and they just came back and they just got listed here again, right, in Core Scientific. So I don't really have a lot of history in terms of a weekly here to really show you too much. If you look at the Ichimoku cloud, it did look like it's trying to flip the Tenkan line from resistance over here to support. So there is a little bit of bull trend here going on the weekly. And if you also look at the bull market support band, it just started happening. There's only like 20 weeks, so far for this stock. But it looks like price is impulsively above, but it's way above the, bull market support band. What I really would worry though is really just how overextended it has been. It does have on the daily chart here, even though there's a lot of whales coming in to pump the stock up a lot higher, it does look like it's a very, very toppy look over here. And I said when price got here, I wouldn't buy because I worried that it wouldn't go up that much higher. It did end up going a little bit higher, but I think majority of the bull move has, been impulsively has been set, and I think you're going to end up having a lot of this kind of exhaustion over here that you might end up getting punished if you buy the stock way outside of a bullish band here for several days in a row. You might end up getting punished here for that. A little bit of a tweezer top over here as well. Big giant gap underneath below. It just looks very, very overextended here on the daily. It could go up a lot higher, don't get me wrong. I could be wrong. Don't let me stop you from making money, but I just think that things are probably a little bit, way too overextended for CORZ. And I won't enter in it. I'll just, enjoy watching, see what it does on the sidelines. Generally, for stocks that hasn't been around enough for me to even chart on a weekly chart, I just leave it alone. I don't care if the price went up from like $4 to like $8. I really don't care. But that's just the way that I operate. But anyway, had a fun time talking about these smaller miners. Hope they help you. Take care. Bye.